Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Pamela.
And today we're going to be talking about our process from moving from traditional graphic design to product design and answering some questions.
I went to school for graphic design back in the day where there was no product design program, but I always knew I wanted to do some sort of digital arts, and graphic design was the closest, but back then, to what I wanted to do. I actually started my education back home in Ecuador for a couple of years and then transferred to the US, to Kansas City. My first job was actually in marketing, doing brand work. I did a little bit of web design, and the interesting thing about having a graphic design background is that there is a lot of things that we use in web design, product design are actually based on metaphors of things that started in graphic design. Like even now, 10 years later, we still say pages. Like when we refer to a mobile app section, we refer it to a page. So we still use a lot of the things, the foundations that I learned in graphic design, like the grid, the color psychology, they are all applicable. So it's been a good foundation for my career to have that background. After a couple of years of doing graphic design, the combination of marketing and web ads, microsites, I decided I wanted to do more tech. I was always interested in the aspect of utility of things. When I was at school, I was debating whether going to industrial design or graphic design because things that physical products, they have a utility. So saying that what we do now in tech, there are those aspects of utility of the software we use. After a couple of years of doing that, I decided to more go into the tech side of things and got my first user experience design job.
I had a similar start. You mentioned industrial design. I was also questioning the same thing when I went into college, graphic design or industrial design. And I ultimately went into graphic design, really loved the program and the creativity and the exploration, and then moved to Kansas City and started practicing through advertising, marketing, branding agencies. I really loved that process, but as I refined through the projects that I enjoyed working on, I really started to find that the experience side of it was my favorite part, and I really enjoyed being involved with the user or the end person, and those projects really intrigued me, and I continued to push on what would it look like to try to do projects like this all the time rather than just whenever they came up. And that really led to me exploring, well, what's out there that's very experience-based and is really focused on experiences. And that idea of user experience led me to product design and ultimately reaching out to Crema and trying to find what would make the most sense from that perspective, and ultimately led me to my job here at Crema, where I'm able to practice being involved in discovery, user experience, and product design every day. So the first question is, how is the role of product designer different from that of a graphic designer? For me, the difference there is really graphic design is a lot about creating the materials, the persona, kind of that person of a brand, whereas product design is a lot more about the experience and the understanding the tool, the process of working through it. So it's more about trying to solve a problem and helping the user get from point A to point B through solving that problem. Whereas that graphic design side is more about the persona and what that brand looks and feels like, and kind of the interactions with that and what those interactions feel like.
Graphic design is a little bit of self-expression. Like you can put some of your innate talents, like styles, when it comes to design. Software is completely different because it's not about you anymore. It's not a way of art, even though it can be, especially if you come from the graphic design background, it can, at the beginning, it can be a bit confusing because it is some sort of art. There is an art component because it's visual, it's aesthetics, but once you get into the industry, you realize that it's not as much about aesthetics, but about functionality and utility. So that's a key difference too. The next question is, what skills do I need to become a product designer? My first thought when it comes to that question is if you have gone through a graphic design program and you already have that foundation, my next thing will be get into psychology and research. Also on the soft skills side will be developing empathy. Those are things that are not taught in a school, especially if you go through a traditional graphic design program, because it's focused on color, typography, layout. Those skills that you're gonna have to build in order to become a product designer that you may not have gotten in graphic design are those more, especially when it comes with psychology. And if you wanna go even farther, it will be business, marketing. That's something that I would do now if I would go to school.
It's a big difference from some of those perspectives because the UI side for me coming into Crema was one of the easier aspects because it's about learning the basics of how some of those things are set up. The accessibility things are important and kind of a new learning curve. But one of the huge shifts for me really has been that idea of discovery and empathy, of understanding the user and being able to practice those skills of research and discovery to understand what a user is going through, what the issues they're having are, and then how ultimately you can start to solve those. And as you're solving those, you need to continue that testing to understand, make sure that you're solving them the right way. So where a lot of graphic design and branding can be more about the feel of it and does it feel right? And there's science there too, of course, but I think the user or the product design side is very much more dependent on that user testing and research side of things to validate every decision that you're making.
There is a fine line when it comes to design in that aspect. Even in product design, we still carry over reviewing portfolios, and those are things that you have to develop. And when you are going out to find a job, or when you're at school, it's really difficult to put that in a portfolio, right? To put discovery in a portfolio. But it's definitely a muscle that out of a school you're gonna have to practice.
The next question is, how can I measure the success of my designs and continue to improve as a product designer? And on that one, it's hard to measure those things. We struggle as designers to be able to measure and validate that stuff sometimes because it can be difficult. But I think one of the crucial things that we always go back to is the user. That's so important in all of product design. And ultimately, through understanding the success of a design, it's user testing. Understanding what a user needs is really important. So take your designs and bring them to people, even if it's people around you, people in your workplace, or if you're student, classmates, or professors, and ask them to walk through the flows that you've created. If they're on paper, just ask them what they would be clicking or tapping on, or if you have something like a Figma prototype, walk people through it and see how they interact with it. Really understanding how a real person will walk through it is the best way we can understand whether or not something is actually successful.
So the next question is, how can I expand my knowledge in design software and our commonly used tools? Read. There is a lot of blogs. Here in our YouTube channel, we have a lot of tutorials for Figma when it comes to design, but also Miro, which is another tool. If you get into product design, you're going to be using a lot. And there are also other tools like Maze, Usability Hub, user testing, that are used for discovery and research. And all those tools are gonna have YouTube playlists where you can have really quick introductions into the tools. Also reach out to people in the industry. What's awesome about the industry is that it's so new and people are always learning about it. Everyone is sharing what they learn every day. So it's a really easy industry to get into if you really want to.
There's a lot of changing things too, and so sometimes reaching out to someone if there's a product design company around you, or even reaching out to Crema and shooting a question over, because the industry changes a lot. And so finding out from people, hey, what are you actually doing this week? What's a new tool that you've discovered? I think it's just kind of diving down the rabbit hole of the world of product design and finding this person and then finding this agency and just finding things that resonate with you and being able to continue having that curiosity, which is always really important to product design. And as we learn, curiosity is the core of a lot of that learning. So our last question is, how do I connect with product designers and product networks around me? There's, again, a lot of opportunities in this. I think product design is a big world, and so it can feel really intimidating. But again, it's that idea of going down the rabbit hole. Here in Kansas City, Crema helps host Friends of Figma. There's a lot of different chapters of Friends of Figma. That's a great place to get involved. It's a free place to meet with other people. There's events all over the country and all over the world. UXPA is another one that's here in Kansas City that's also national that you can get involved with. It's reaching out to those designers, product agencies around you, or ones that you enjoy and follow, and kind of asking them, hey, how would you get involved, or what ways are you involved in your community, kind of giving knowledge back out and finding ways to get involved with people through those methods.
The last bit of advice we have for you is to start developing that critical eye for software. Start constructing the apps you use, and if you have time, maybe start designing mock-ups that improve the experience that you have as a user. That's a great place to start, just to start developing that other side of the brain where you are looking at things critically, not only from the aesthetic, but also from the functionality standpoint.
Nothing is scarier, I think, as a designer than the blank Figma page or the blank email or whatever. And just getting that start, having that curiosity to say, I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna see how this app worked, or how they built these things, or what their system looks like, or I'm gonna try my hand at this solution. We often don't get the answer right. Even as professionals, we expect that we're not gonna get it right the first time. That's our default, is to get it wrong the first time and try again. Just jumping in and seeing what you can explore is really, really important.
Yeah, and Google previous versions too. I mean, that will shine light. Why are they making changes? How are they improving the experiences that you are looking at today? Maybe you can look at what version 2 of that product was before, and that will teach you something.
Thanks for watching the video today. If you enjoyed this video, you can give us a like, subscribe. If you have additional questions, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to read through those. Thanks for joining us on this video today, and see you next time.